Black Bolt and White Flare has been legal in Japan for like a couple of days now. Already things are starting to change. We obviously have like a couple of cards being implemented into a couple of decks here and there. We have some very powerful tool cards that are starting to see play, like Air Balloon and the, I think, Brave Bangle, that's what it's called. One deck that has actually started to pop up again is a fan favorite for many, and that is Miraidon. That's right, Miraidon is coming back with Black Bolt and White Flare, and it's all because of one card being electric, which is Dynamotor. You know, that's kind of one of the reasons why Miraidon was so good back in the day, was Dynamotor Fluffy, being able to recycle back your energies from the discard, basically just reattach them onto your Pokemon and start swinging again. And that is kind of how the deck is looking to be played going into the Black Bolt and White Flare format. The deck is doing decently well, winning a couple of local tournaments here and there, and in terms of the list, they look kind of similar to how the deck was being played pre-rotation as well as the rotation before that. You know, back in 2023, Miraidon was a very, very popular deck, and then in 2024, it, you know, became even more popular. And despite losing a bunch of really good support, it could still compete relatively well as a pretty strong Ghost second deck. You set up a Raikou and possibly just take an instant knockout and win the game if your opponent doesn't have anything else on the bench. And over the course of the couple of years, we've actually gotten a couple of cards that can replace those cards that the deck has lost from rotation. Obviously, the deck still plays stuff like Iron Hands, which is able to take multiple prize cards if you're able to get it powered up. Obviously, Electric Generator is still seen play at 4 copies, allowing you to get out multiple lightning energies from the deck. The deck now has even more like new support cards. You know, you got Squawkabilly, which was seen play before, Mew EX, Latias EX, so now everything has free retreat, except the very few evolution Pokemon that you play, and of course Fezandipity, so when someone gets knocked out, you can draw 3 cards. In terms of the new types of support Pokemon we have for the deck, obviously Electric, with Dynamotor being able to get your energy back from the discard if something gets knocked out. We also have Magneton, which does the same thing, but it has to knock itself out to get free energy back from the discard, which can actually be a bit beneficial because it puts you behind on prizes, so you could utilize stuff like Counter Catcher to bring up anything you need, so on and so forth. It basically just like helps manipulate the game more in your favor, even if you are knocking out something. Plus, it accelerates free energy back from the discard, whereas Dynamo or Electric can only put 1. And then we of course have a couple of new Pokemon and new attackers for the deck. I'm going to talk about the new main one, well not the main one, but the main end game attacker being Zekrom EX. So Zekrom EX has the slash attack, which does, 50 damage, whatever, it's not that good. But then it has the voltage burst attack for 130 damage for 2 lightning and a colorless, but this attack does 50 more damage for each prize card your opponent has taken, but this Pokemon also does 30 damage to itself. So very late into the game, this card can knock out almost anything. If your opponent's taken 4 prizes, that 130 becomes 330, so you can very easily knock out pretty much anything. 330 is enough to evolution EX Pokemon. There might be some that have 340, I'm not entirely certain. It's a very, very strong late game attacker that can basically just take a game from straight out of nowhere. You could possibly, use Nest Ball, get onto the bench, Dynamotor to it twice, and then just attach, bring it in, because if you have Latias in play, everything will have free retreat, and then you can just KO whatever you need to take the game. Very, very, very strong Pokemon. That in my set list review I said was actually kind of weak, because, it does 30 damage to itself, so now it puts it in range of other Pokemon, but if you're using it during the end of the game to take the final KO, then it's, very, very strong. A couple of other cards are also seen playing the deck. Zeraora from Destined Rivals. So this card has the Thunder Raid attack, which for 3 lightning energy, this says discard all energy from this Pokemon. This attack does 210 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon EX. Now this attack is pretty strong, but against a couple of Terra decks it doesn't really do anything because Terra Pokemon have built-in protection from bench attacks. But there are conveniently quite a few Pokemon in the format that have 210 HP or less and are, EX Pokemon. Fezandipity EX, one of the most powerful cards in the format, has 210 HP. Latias, I believe, has 200 HP. Mew, 180. Squawkabilly has like 160, so you can very easily knock out those types of Pokemon on the bench because they don't have built-in protection, and even though we have stuff like Shaman that only protects non-Roblox Pokemon from being hit, there's also, just a bunch of other stuff that decks might throw in, depending what deck you're up against, you could easily knock out something like a Wellspring Mask Ogapon, you could knock out something like a Clefairy EX, You could put a bunch of damage on a Terrapago, so then you could, amp you very much on it. That's also another thing that you could do with the card, is that you could put some damage on an EX Pokemon and then use amp you very much on Iron Hands to take free prize cards if you're able to bring it up next turn. And this card kind of replaces Raichu V in the deck, because I think Raichu V did 50 damage for every energy in play that you discarded. Kind of the same thing, I guess. So like this card is kind of the replacement for Raichu V, but it hits a benched Pokemon and it's for a fixed amount of damage. Another card that the deck is seeing play with is Thunderous from Paldean Fates. This card says as long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, prevent all damage done to your benched Pokemon by attacks from your opponent's Pokemon. So you can basically just sit this in the active and just power up anything you need on the bench, protecting yourself from those plethora of bench hitting Pokemon that we have in the format. And it also has the gigantic bolt attack, which does 140 damage and then 90 damage to itself. Can be useful if something's weak to, say, lightning, like with stuff like Pidgeotto, so this can very easily one-hit KO that. 2 lightning for 140 is pretty powerful. Obviously, doing damage to itself is a bit of a downside, because then it easily puts it in range of, just a couple of damage counters. 20 HP is how much it'll have left. But if you're able to one-hit KO something that's very important for your opponent, that's all the better. Looking at deck lists, not all of them are the same. They obviously play like Dynamo, or obviously some of them are playing Magneton, some of them aren't. Some of them are playing Zeraora, some of them aren't. Some of them playing a Thunderous, some of them aren't. So on and so forth. Some of them are putting in the Joltik, which can accelerate, 4 energy from the deck, helping you get powered up a lot quickly. Some of them are playing the new Galvantula, which is, kind of like Raichu V. Its attack discards all lightning energy from this Pokemon. It does 50 damage for each card discarded in this way. So if you can get a bunch of lightning energy onto this Pokemon, you can just discard it all and do a huge amount of damage on a non-rule box 1 prize Pokemon. Very strong. But you also have the Joltik pre-evolution to accelerate out some energies from the deck onto your other Pokemon. Some lists are playing Pikachu EX just to give you more bench space, so you can very easily get a lot of stuff into play. Some lists are playing, some other tool cards like EXP Share, so when one of your Pokemon does get knocked out, you can move that energy onto a different Pokemon. But other than that, they're playing the stuff. They're playing Zekrom, Miraidon, obviously Iron Hands, then all the support Pokemon. And then there's a couple here and there that are playing some different types of Pokemon to facilitate different needs. But in terms of the deck's playstyle, it plays pretty much how Miraidon used to do, You use Miraidon tandem unit to get a bunch of Pokemon into play, a couple of electric generators to get them powered up, and you just start swinging for big damage. Your stuff gets knocked out, just get the energy back with stuff like Electric and Magneton, and just do it again. In terms of the deck's popularity, we are only into the first few days of Black Bolt and White Flare being released, so it's only sitting at a 2.1% representation in the B tier. I imagine that might increase over time, heavily depends. I'm not sure how good the deck fares in matchups against other decks, because the deck does kind of rely on item cards with stuff like electric generators, so if you get item locked, then you can't really power up your stuff that easily, which is why I think some lists are playing Joltik, so you can bypass Badoo in a way and just get your energies into play. So that 2.1 could increase, it could decrease. I know Miraidon is a fan favorite for quite a few people, so I imagine people will be happy to pick up Miraidon again and start playing it again when Black Bolt and White Flare releases next month. And plus, going into the future, we could have a couple more lightning Pokemon releasing the next few sets, which could see play alongside Miraidon, because unfortunately Miraidon won't be sticking around for much longer, as it will be rotating next year, as it is part of the G block, which is the next block of cards that will be rotating, and we'll be moving on with only H, I, and J as our availability for cards. So Miraidon is kind of in the same vein as Lost Box was last year, because Lost Box kind of fell off towards the end of the year and then it came back for just like one last hurrah, and Miraidon seems to be doing the same thing. Although I guess you could count Joltik Box as also Miraidon, but Joltik Box is not Miraidon, it's Joltik Box. We use Miraidon to get Joltik and all our other cards in there, so on and so forth. They're two completely different decks, although they kind of look very similar. I imagine Joltik Box might start throwing in Zekrom and maybe even Dynamo. Who knows, Joltik Box and Miraidon might just become one deck. But Joltik Box does have its differences over Miraidon because it can use various other types of Pokemon, whereas Miraidon is purely focusing on those electric type of Pokemon. And that's kind of it for the video. Not really much to talk about Miraidon. It's a a fan favorite deck. It's been around for a couple of years now, ever since it came out, and it's done very, very well at events. Jesse Pinkman, not Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad. Jesse Parker took the deck to Worlds in 2025 and did incredibly well with it, and even got the deck printed as one of those, whatever they're called, like the World Championship decks. A huge achievement. I know he's been an avid fan of Miraidon for a long time. Even people like Andrew Mahone took it to Worlds in 2023 and 21st or 22nd place, so he did really well with it in a format full of stuff like Gardevoir, Mew VMAX, Lugia, all that type of stuff. So yeah, Miraidon is a fan favorite deck, and a very powerful deck at that, and it's shown itself to be very strong when piloted by the right people. And even after that rotation at the start of 2024, the deck kind of dropped off, and then it just came back and did even better than ever. And it might do the same when Black Belt and White Flare releases, because that's going to be around the time when we'll have Worlds. So who knows, it could have another great run as it's had the 2 years prior. And that's it for this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, what you think about Miraidon coming back. Are you going to be picking the deck back up? Are you looking forward to playing the deck once again? Do you think the deck is going to have its time to shine in the last few months that it's going to be legal? Or do you think people are maybe, hyping it up a little bit too much? Do you think the deck just kind of doesn't have the room to compete in the type of format we're in right now? Let me know your thoughts. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all of that nonsense, and we'll see you in the next video, whatever that may be. Take care.